Hi, my name is Emily Johnson, and in the speech I gave last week, I discussed the Affordable Health Care Act and the reform that is soon to be coming. Today, I'm going to be discussing with you why Americans should be accepting the Affordable Health Care Act reform. The Affordable Health Care Act was passed in 2010 on March 23rd by President Barack Obama, and he signed it into law. And so we have been living with the Affordable Health Care Act for 7 years. In 2015, the United States had a population of 322 million people, and 90.9% of those people were insured. Now, my question to you is, concerning the Affordable Health Care Act and your health insurance, is are you happy with the health care that you are paying for, and are you getting the benefits that you deserve? To understand the impact of the Affordable Care Act, we need to understand who is covered under the effects and the changes. One of the biggest issues that I have seen or observed personally from the people around me is the concern that Medicare is going to take major cutbacks with the new reform. Now, in a recent article written by Elizabeth O'Brien from Time.com, she writes that the Affordable Care Act would affect current and future Medicare beneficiaries. And then at the conclusion of that, she stated that that would affect all Americans. Now, I think many people, including myself, are unclear as to what Medicare actually is. And Medicare is defined as a program, a federal health insurance program for people who are 65 and older, for young people who are disabled, and people with end-stage renal disease, which is a permanent kidney failure that requires dialysis or transplant. Now, according to the Census Bureau, in July of 2015, there were 14.9% of the population was 65 years or older. Now, with approximately 15% of people being 65 years or older, not including disability, the young people that are on disabilities or at the end of end-stage renal failure, that's about 85% of people who are not considered or classified under Medicare. Now, again, one of the main arguments that I've been hearing personally in my observations is that Medicare would take major cutbacks, and that is why this new healthcare reform would not work. But if 85% of the people are not covered under Medicare that are in the United States, then this is not a huge concern with the new reform. As I discussed in my informative speech on the Affordable Care Act, many Americans are worried about the new health care reform because they are worried about these cutbacks. And so this really is not the big issue. And this is why we should not be arguing for the reform, to oppose the reform, because Medicare for the biggest majority of the working class is not an issue. Now, since we have narrowed down the majority of Americans that will be affected by the Republican health bill, I want to explore why Americans need to accept the new health bill despite the likelihood that their premiums will spike due to pre-existing conditions. One of the other main arguments that I have heard against accepting this new health reform is that premiums will spike due to existing conditions. Now, in May of 2017, Time.com published an article that listed 50 pre-existing conditions that, depending on the insurer, would spike premiums for people. Of these, I can deem 8 that are self-induced health problems. It includes AIDS and HIV, alcohol and drug abuse, congenital heart failure, in some cases, diabetes, obesity, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. Now, the Center for American Progress notes that high blood pressure and high cholesterol are 2 of the 6 most common pre-existing conditions that insurance agencies charge extra premiums for. Now, my argument with this is, like I said before, the majority of people are arguing that the new healthcare reform will not work because of the pre-existing conditions that they are going to be charged for. What I am asking is that we really dig deep and consider what pre-existing conditions that we are paying for. For example, if you are being charged higher premiums because you are obese, maybe we should look at our eating habits, and we should consider how much we're exercising and our overall lifestyle decisions. High cholesterol, high blood pressure fall under these categories too. And like I said, they are two of the 6 most extra charge premiums by insurers. Now, alcohol and drug abuse fall under this category too. These are also pre-existing conditions. So my argument here is we cannot argue that pre-existing conditions are the government's fault, because for the majority of these pre-existing conditions, we are the cause. So instead of opposing the government and the bill that they are trying to pass to reform the healthcare, we need to be taking a look and considering why our premiums are higher and if we are the cause for that. Now, I understand in some situations that this is the pre-existing conditions have nothing to do with self-induced problems, and there's a good percentage out there that is not going to have pre-existing conditions due to self-induced issues, and we have to take those into consideration too. So I have dismantled the opposition of the new bill because of the Medicare cutbacks and the pre-existing conditions, but now I would like to give you something else to think about. Americans should simply not oppose the health care bill simply because of which side they lean towards. And I think this is another issue. I think that the majority of Americans are opposing the Republican health care bill, like I have stated earlier, because they are Democrat or because they are independent or because they stand with another party. I think we need to really take a look at ourselves and decide whether or not we are opposing the bill because of merit or because we are opposing the bill because of our political standing. It is no secret that our President Donald Trump is a Republican and stands on the right wing of things. And the New York Times published an article on June 22nd of this year that the Senate Republicans unveiled their health bill and it will take 50 votes to pass the bill. Now, there are 100 members in this Senate, and they highlighted that every Democrat is expected to oppose the new bill. So likewise, how many of the Americans are opposing the new bill because they are on the left wing also? Now, I understand that there are probably people who have some very good opinions and suggestions and guidelines as to why they don't want this bill to work. But I think that there is a big majority that is saying, this is a Republican health care bill. I want the Obamacare, the Democrat healthcare bill. This is what I want to stick with because this is my party. And I think we have to be open-minded about that. And so whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're an independent or otherwise, we need to educate ourselves and become familiar with what is going on in the healthcare reform. Just because our party is not holding the white hat does not mean that we can't be for the bills that are being passed. And I think there is definitely a bias on every side. And I think it's really just time to come together and put it out on the table and say, okay, I'm not a Republican. This is not the president that I wanted. This is not the way that I wanted this to go, but here we are. So, as I have explained, Americans need to be more accepting of the new healthcare bill. In the end, I believe we are all looking for the same thing, affordable healthcare with good benefits. I've given you several things to think about when you consider where you stand with the new healthcare reform. Are you opposed to the bill because of the cutbacks to Medicare? Are you opposing the bill because of the higher premiums for pre-existing conditions? Or do you just not agree with the political party backing the new reform? And I think those are questions that you have to answer on your own. The healthcare reform is no doubt a controversial issue. And like I have stated earlier, we need to take a step back and we need to look at these things and we need to examine why we are really not for this new bill. You know, we signed the Obamacare into law on March 23, 2010. We've been dealing with this bill for 7 years, and many Americans, and I personally, do not feel like it's working. So I ask that you just consider these possibilities about the Medicare and about pre-existing conditions and which political party you stand with, and consider why you are so opposed to the new healthcare bill. And I think that in the end you will see that accepting this new healthcare bill will probably be the best bet for the United States. And I think overall everyone wants that. Thank you for listening.